Young black doctor changes bandages on comatose millionaire. Surprisingly, he wakes up and, "Are you sure this young woman should be taking care of our most important patient?" Dr. Reginald Thompson's sharp voice echoed through the fifth-floor hallway of St. Jude's Medical Center loud enough for everyone to hear, including the young doctor heading toward room 407. Dr. Amelia Jones stopped at the door, took a deep breath, and adjusted her glasses. At 28, she was used to these veiled or not-so-veiled digs. 4 years of residency at London's most prestigious hospital had taught her that her competence would always be questioned before she even opened her mouth. "Dr. Thompson." Amelia replied with a calm she had learned to cultivate. "Mr. Alistair Finch has been under my care for 2 weeks. His vital signs have improved significantly since I took over the case." The medical director crossed his arms, his cold blue eyes studying the young doctor as if she were an object out of place. The Finch family donated £5 million for the construction of the new neurology wing. "We can't afford to experiment." Amelia knew exactly what he meant by experiment, since arriving at St. Jude's from a less prominent university on a full scholarship. Every case she had been assigned felt like a test, as if she had to prove every day that she deserved to be there. Alistair Finch, heir to one of the largest shipping fortunes in the country, had been in a coma for 5 months after a diving accident. 26 years old, dark-haired, privileged, and surrounded by a family that treated doctors like domestic servants, especially doctors who didn't look like them. "With all due respect, Dr. Thompson," Amelia said, her voice remaining professional, "my training in neurology at Cambridge and my specialization in traumatic brain injury speak for themselves." The mention of Cambridge, one of the best medical schools in the country, made Thompson frown. It was always like this: genuine surprise when they discovered her credentials, followed by subtle attempts to diminish her achievements. Amelia entered Alistair's room, where soft morning light filtered through the luxurious curtains. The young heir had been motionless for 150 days, breathing with the aid of machines, surrounded by expensive flowers that arrived daily from high society friends. But there was something no one else had noticed: subtle neurological signs that Amelia had been meticulously documenting in private notes. Small eye movements, changes in breathing patterns, micro-reactions to stimuli. Her master's thesis on altered states of consciousness had given her knowledge that few doctors possessed. "Good morning, Alistair," Amelia murmured, beginning to change the dressing on the surgical incision. "I know you're in there, and when you're ready to come back, I'll be here." What Amelia couldn't know was that Alistair had actually been conscious for a month, trapped in his own body, listening to every conversation. Every prejudiced comment about the white doctor who shouldn't be taking care of him, and for the first time in his privileged life, he was learning what it really meant to be judged for something beyond his choice. While Amelia worked with surgical precision, checking reflexes and neurological signs that other doctors ignored, Alistair struggled internally to send any sign that he was awake. But his body seemed disconnected from his will, as if an invisible barrier prevented him from returning to the conscious world. Then something extraordinary happened. If you're enjoying this story of overcoming adversity and justice, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to find out how a moment of awakening would forever change the lives of 2 people who never imagined they had anything in common, and how true medical competence would become the most powerful weapon against years of ingrained prejudice. What Amelia didn't expect was that her suspicions about Alistair being more conscious than he appeared would be confirmed in a way that would change both their lives forever. While checking the young heir's pupillary reflexes, she noticed something that made her heart race: a pattern of eye movement that suggested brain activity far above what other doctors had detected. "Interesting," she muttered to herself, discreetly jotting down her observations in a personal notebook she always carried with her. Years of studying neurology at Cambridge on a full scholarship earned after working 3 jobs to pay for her undergraduate degree had taught her to recognize signs that less dedicated doctors often overlooked. That was when the door burst open, interrupting her examination. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Mrs. Evelyn Finch's authoritative voice echoed through the room like a whip. The family matriarch, elegant at 60, entered accompanied by her son, Mr. Arthur Finch, and Dr. Thompson himself, all with expressions that mixed indignation and distrust. Amelia straightened slowly, keeping her hands where everyone could see them, a habit she had developed after years of dealing with people who judged her by the color of her skin before even considering her qualifications. "I'm performing a routine neurological examination, Mrs. Finch," she replied with a professional calm she had perfected. "Alistair has been showing some promising signs that I would like to investigate further." Arthur Finch, a man in his 40s accustomed to getting everything he wanted with money and influence, stepped forward. "Signs that the other doctors with far more experience, have failed to detect. How convenient." The irony was almost comical. Amelia had published 2 articles on altered states of consciousness in international medical journals during her residency, something few doctors achieved even at the end of their careers. But there, in that hospital room, her credentials were worth less than the color of her skin. "With all due respect," Amelia said, her voice remaining respectful, while her eyes showed a firmness that made Evelyn recoil imperceptibly, "my specialization is exactly in cases like Alistair's. Cambridge has the #1 program in the country in neurology, and my thesis on—" "Enough," Dr. Thompson cut in. "The family has the right to choose who cares for their son. And frankly, Dr. Jones, perhaps you should focus on patients more suited to your level of experience." The veiled insult hung in the air like toxic smoke. Amelia knew exactly what he meant by suited. Poor patients, no premium insurance, cases no one else wanted. Those were the opportunities people like her deserved in their view. But what really broke Amelia's heart was realizing that Alistair was listening to everything. His monitors showed a slight change in heart rate, imperceptible to anyone who didn't know what to look for, but crystal clear to someone with her expertise. He was conscious, trapped in his own body, hearing every prejudiced word directed at the doctor who had been caring for him more devotedly than anyone else. "Very well," Amelia said finally, putting away her stethoscope. "I'll talk to Dr. Peterson about transferring the case. But before that," she turned directly to Evelyn, "I would like you to know that Alistair has been showing neurological patterns consistent with a gradual return of consciousness, signs that other doctors may not recognize immediately." Evelyn frowned. "What are you implying?" "I'm not implying anything, Mrs. Finch. I'm saying that in my professional medical opinion, Alistair may be much more conscious than he appears. And if that's the case, he has been listening to every conversation that has taken place in this room." The silence that followed was deafening. Arthur shifted uncomfortably while Evelyn stared at her son with an expression that was a mixture of hope and something that looked like guilt. Is that possible?" Evelyn asked, her voice losing some of its previous authority. Amelia nodded gravely. "More common than you might think. Patients in prolonged comas sometimes regain consciousness gradually, hearing and processing information long before they are able to respond physically. That's why I always recommend that families talk to their patients as if they were awake." She didn't mention that she had spent 2 weeks talking to Alistair about medicine, classic literature, and even the prejudices she faced daily at the hospital, conversations that now made perfect sense if he really was conscious. Dr. Thompson cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. "Well, that's just speculation. Dr. Peterson will be able to assess that properly when he takes over the case." "Dr. Peterson," Amelia said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, "who interestingly has never published anything on neurology and whose last update on comas was 18 years ago. But I'm sure he'll take good care of Alistair." It was a subtle but devastating criticism. Everyone there knew that Peterson was known more for his diplomacy with wealthy families than for his current medical competence. As the Finches left the room in silence, Amelia approached Alistair's bed one last time. "If you can hear me," she whispered too softly for the others to hear, "I want you to know that I will never give up on a patient because of prejudice or pressure. But, more importantly, I want you to know that you are much stronger than they realize. And when you're ready to come back, I hope you remember that true strength doesn't come from money or status. It comes from how we treat people when they can't defend themselves." What Amelia couldn't see was the single tear that rolled down Alistair's cheek, the first physical reaction he had been able to produce in months. For the first time in his privileged life, he was experiencing what it meant to be judged and defended based on his character, not his last name. And as Amelia gathered her belongings, carefully documenting all her observations about the case before passing it on, something extraordinary was happening in Alistair's body. The combination of outrage at the unfair treatment he had witnessed and the determination inspired by Amelia's words was creating a neurological storm that would begin to break down the barriers that held him captive. Every prejudiced word he had heard, every moment of dignity Amelia had shown under pressure, was forging in him a completely new understanding of justice, character, and the true value of people. And that new awareness was becoming the key that would finally free him from his silent prison, but not in the way anyone could have predicted. What the Finches didn't know was that Amelia Jones wasn't just another talented doctor fighting prejudice. She was a born strategist who had learned early on that in life, you don't win by shouting. You win by proving yourself, and the proof she was building would be devastating. 3 days after being removed from Alistair's case, Amelia continued to work at the hospital as if nothing had happened. But in her spare time, something very different was going on. In her small apartment, transformed into a makeshift command center, she meticulously organized every piece of evidence she had collected about Alistair's true neurological state. "Are you sure about this, Amelia?" asked Dr. Benjamin Hayes, a renowned neurologist and retired professor at Cambridge, examining the data Amelia had shared via video call. Hayes was more than a mentor. He was the man who had seen potential in a determined student and helped her earn a full scholarship to the best medical university in the country. "Absolutely," Amelia replied, pointing to the graphs on the screen. "The eye movement patterns, the variations in heart rate during specific conversations, the micropupillary reactions. Everything indicates that Alistair Finch has been conscious for at least a month, possibly longer." Hayes nodded gravely. "And you've documented all of this?" "Every detail, videos, photos of the monitors, time-stamped notes. I even have records of how he reacted differently when specific people entered the room." Amelia paused, her expression hardening, "including his reactions to prejudiced conversations about me." What Amelia didn't tell her mentor was that she had discovered something even more disturbing. While discreetly investigating Alistair's previous medical records, she had found alarming inconsistencies in the initial diagnosis. Dr. Peterson, the doctor who had taken her place, had ignored obvious neurological signs and kept Alistair on medication that could be artificially prolonging his unconscious state. Meanwhile, at the hospital, the situation was rapidly deteriorating for Alistair. Dr. Peterson, true to his reputation for incompetence masquerading as diplomacy, had implemented a completely inappropriate treatment protocol. Worse, Evelyn Finch had begun pushing for more definitive procedures to speed her son's recovery, procedures that could cause permanent neurological damage. "Dr. Peterson," Evelyn said during one of her daily visits, "our patience is wearing thin. Alistair has been in this state for months. Perhaps it's time to consider more aggressive options." Arthur, ever the dutiful son, nodded vigorously. "We have access to the best specialists in the world. Perhaps experimental surgery?" Peterson, more concerned with keeping the family happy than with the patient's well-being, began to seriously consider these dangerous options. "Well, there are some new procedures that could stimulate brain activity." What none of them realized was that Alistair, still trapped in his own body, but increasingly conscious, was hearing every word of this terrifying conversation. For the first time, he began to truly understand the contrast between the genuine care Amelia had shown him and the dangerous neglect he was receiving now. It was then that Amelia decided it was time to act. Using her contacts at the university and the discreet influence of Dr. Hayes, she began to prepare something the Finches would never see coming. It wouldn't just be a medical exposé. It would be a complete and public demolition of the entire structure of prejudice and incompetence that dominated that hospital. "Benjamin," Amelia said during one of her nightly conversations with Hayes, I need you to contact Dr. Serena Patel at the General Medical Council and also the producers of that investigative television program on medical malpractice, Unseen Healers. Hayes raised his eyebrows. Are you sure you want to go that far? The Finches are very powerful. They could destroy your career. Amelia smiled. Not the gentle smile she wore for her patients, but something more dangerous. Professor, they may try to destroy my career, but I'm going to destroy something much more important to them, their reputation. And when I'm done, they'll beg me to take Alistair back. What Amelia had discovered in her investigations was even more damning than medical incompetence. Financial documents showed that the Finch family had pressured the hospital to keep Alistair in a prolonged coma to delay legal issues related to his inheritance. Evelyn was using her son's condition to maintain control of the family business. But the centerpiece of her plan wasn't just to expose the corruption. It was something much more powerful. Amelia had found a way to communicate with Alistair using advanced neurological techniques she had learned at Cambridge. Small codes through hand pressure, specific light patterns, methods other doctors didn't even know existed, and Alistair was responding. During her nighttime visits, when she was able to slip into the hospital unnoticed with the help of sympathetic colleagues, Amelia had established basic but functional communication with the young heir. He was not only conscious, but desperate to expose what his own family was doing to him. Alistair, Amelia whispered during one of these secret visits, if you can hear me, I need you to know that I'm putting something together. Your family will try dangerous procedures, but I promise I won't let that happen. His response, 2 almost imperceptible squeezes of her hand, confirmed what she already knew. Alistair Finch, the spoiled heir everyone thought they knew, was ready to fight alongside the doctor his family had rejected out of prejudice. The plan was almost ready. In 72 hours, during the Finch family's next medical meeting with Dr. Peterson, Amelia would execute the most devastating exposé that hospital had ever witnessed. And this time, she wouldn't be alone. She would have Alistair's own voice to corroborate every word. As Amelia finalized the last details of her strategy, checking every piece of evidence, every recording, every document she had collected, something extraordinary was happening in room 407. Alistair, fueled by the outrage and hope Amelia had planted in him, was gathering strength for something that would shock everyone, because sometimes the best revenge doesn't come from the wronged. It comes from the unexpected alliance between two people who refuse to accept that prejudice and incompetence can defeat truth and justice. The meeting was scheduled for 9 on Tuesday morning in the main auditorium of St. Jude's Medical Center. Dr. Peterson had summoned the Finch family to discuss the aggressive procedures Evelyn had been insisting on, while Amelia Jones waited outside, officially not allowed to enter. But what the Finches didn't know was that at that point, Amelia no longer needed anyone's permission. Mr. and Mrs. Finch, Peterson began with his usual arrogance. After consulting with renowned specialists, I believe that experimental surgery to directly stimulate the cerebral cortex could significantly speed up Alistair's recovery. Evelyn nodded vigorously. Finally, someone with initiative. How much longer are we going to wait? It was at that moment that the auditorium door opened and Amelia entered, accompanied by 3 people who made Evelyn's blood run cold. Dr. Serena Patel of the General Medical Council, a cameraman from the National Television Investigative Program, Unseen Healers, and Dr. Benjamin Hayes, whose name was known in medical circles around the world. Excuse the interruption, Amelia said, with a calmness that contrasted sharply with a growing panic in Peterson's eyes. But I believe you are about to make a mistake that could cost Alistair Finch his life. What the hell do you think you're doing? Exploded Arthur, rising from his chair. You've been removed from this case. Security. Actually, interjected Dr. Patel, flashing her official identification, Dr. Jones contacted us with evidence of serious medical negligence and possible malpractice. I have legal authority to investigate this case immediately. Peterson tried to maintain his composure, but his hands were shaking visibly. This is ridiculous. What evidence? Amelia smiled, not the gentle smile she wore with patience, but something much more dangerous. I'll start with the recordings. What followed was a systematic and brutal demolition of everything the Finches thought they controlled. Amelia had secretly recorded conversations in which Peterson admitted he hadn't studied neurology in years. Financial documents showed suspicious payments from the family to the hospital. Even more devastating, medical records proved that Alistair had been showing signs of consciousness for weeks, signs that Peterson had completely ignored. "Impossible," Evelyn stammered, but her voice no longer had the authority it once had. "Alistair has been in a coma for months." "He was," Amelia corrected. "And during that time, he heard every prejudice conversation about me, every discussion about keeping him unconscious for inheritance purposes, every dangerous plan you made to speed up unnecessary procedures." The final bombshell came when Amelia turned on a tablet, showing everyone the live feed from room 407. Alistair was sitting up in bed, fully conscious, calmly chatting with a nurse about the events of the past few months. The silence that followed was deafening. "How? When did he?" stammered Peterson, realizing that his career had just ended. "Alistair regained full consciousness 3 days ago," Amelia explained. "But he asked us to keep it a secret until this meeting. He wanted to be present in a way when the truth was revealed." Dr. Hayes approached Peterson with an expression of professional contempt. 30 years of medicine, Harold, and you wanted to perform an unnecessary craniotomy on a conscious patient. That's not negligence. It's criminal incompetence." Evelyn tried one last desperate gambit. "You can't prove we knew anything about this." Amelia opened a second folder, pulling out detailed transcripts. "I can, actually." Alistair meticulously documented every conversation he overheard during his period of silent consciousness, including your discussions about using his condition to maintain control of the family business. The cameraman captured every moment of growing horror on the Finches' faces. Arthur had turned completely pale, while Evelyn looked as if she had aged 10 years in 10 minutes. "There's more," Amelia continued relentlessly. "The Commission's investigation has revealed a disturbing pattern of discrimination at this hospital. Competent doctors are being removed from lucrative cases for reasons that have nothing to do with medical qualifications." Dr. Patel took the floor, her voice cutting through the air like a knife. "Dr. Peterson, you are suspended effective immediately, pending a full investigation. Mrs. Finch, our financial investigation into payments to the hospital will be intensified. And as for the donation to the neurology ward," she paused dramatically, "it will be returned in full until the ethical issues involved are clarified." That's when something extraordinary happened. Alistair's voice came through the speaker connected to the tablet, clear and determined. "I would like to make a public statement." Everyone turned to the screen where Alistair was looking directly at the camera. "My name is Alistair Finch, and for 5 months I have been conscious but unable to communicate. During that time, I witnessed what true medical character looks like when no one is watching. Dr. Amelia Jones treated me with more dignity, competence, and compassion than any other professional in this hospital. She saved my life not only medically, but by keeping my humanity intact when others saw me only as a problem to be solved." Evelyn tried to interrupt, but Alistair continued. "My family and Dr. Peterson nearly subjected me to unnecessary and dangerous surgery because their arrogance prevented them from recognizing obvious signs of recovery. Dr. Jones was the only one who saw those signs because she cared enough to look." Peterson was now visibly desperate. "Alistair, you don't understand the medical complexities." "I understand perfectly," Alistair cut him off. "I understand that you put politics and prejudice above medical well-being. And I understand that if it weren't for Dr. Jones's courage in challenging this toxic culture, I could be dead right now." The final blow came when Dr. Patel announced, "As a result of this investigation, Dr. Amelia Jones will be promoted to head of the Department of Neurology, effective immediately. Her research on altered states of consciousness will be fully funded by the university." Evelyn and Arthur left the auditorium in silence, their reputations in ruins, facing financial investigations and the prospect of a lawsuit. Peterson was escorted out by security, his medical license suspended indefinitely. As the cameras captured the final moments of the meeting, Amelia finally allowed herself a moment of genuine satisfaction. It wasn't revenge, it was justice. Pure, simple, and devastatingly effective. But the real twist was yet to come, because, as Amelia would soon discover, Alistair Finch wasn't just a patient she had saved. He was about to become the most powerful ally she could ever have imagined, with plans that would completely transform the medical system that had done them both so much harm. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying your enemies. It's turning them into the architects of their own irrelevance while you rebuild the world around them in a way they could never have predicted. 6 months later, St. Jude's Medical Center was unrecognizable. The new head of neurology had implemented revolutionary protocols based on her research on altered states of consciousness, saving dozens of lives that would previously have been considered lost. Dr. Amelia Jones was no longer just a competent doctor fighting for recognition. She was an international authority in her field. "Dr. Jones," said a young black resident during morning rounds, "we have 5 new coma cases that other hospitals have transferred here. They all want the Jones protocol." Amelia smiled, watching her diverse team of talented doctors from all backgrounds, selected solely for their competence. The department that had once been dominated by nepotism and prejudice was now the most respected on the East Coast. Alistair had become more than a patient she had saved. He was her partner in the Jones-Finch Foundation for Medical Justice, an organization that investigated cases of discrimination in hospitals and funded the medical education of students from underserved communities. Her first legal victory had resulted in an £8 million settlement for a South Asian doctor who had been wrongfully fired. Money that came directly out of the profits of the hospital that had allowed the discrimination to happen. "Amelia," Alistair said, walking into her new office overlooking the Thames, "we just got the confirmation. Oxford wants you to head up their new neurological research center. £50 million in funding." The irony was delicious. The same medical elite that had questioned her qualifications was now disputing her expertise as if it were the holy grail of modern neurology. Meanwhile, Dr. Peterson had permanently lost his medical license after the investigation revealed other cases of negligence that had been covered up over the years. His desperate attempt to get a job at a rural clinic in the country was rejected when his name appeared associated with the scandal on Google. At 58, he was working as a medical equipment salesman, a position that required him to visit hospitals where he had once been treated like royalty, now ignored by doctors who knew his history. Evelyn Finch faced an even more brutal reality. The financial investigation had revealed years of tax evasion and bribery, resulting in fines that consumed 40% of the family fortune. Arthur had moved abroad, fleeing legal proceedings, while Evelyn lived in seclusion in her mansion, avoiding social events where she had once shone. The Finch name, which for generations had symbolized power and prestige, was now synonymous with corruption and prejudice. "You know what impresses me the most?" Alistair commented as they reviewed the Foundation's quarterly reports. "It wasn't just justice, it was a complete transformation of the system." Amelia nodded, remembering those days when she had to prove her competence to every patient, every procedure, every conversation. Now, young doctors from minority backgrounds sought out St. Jude's Medical Center, specifically because they knew that talent was the only currency that mattered there. The hospital conference room, where she had been publicly humiliated months earlier, now housed the Jones Mentoring Program, where veteran doctors from all backgrounds trained the next generation of professionals. The plaque on the wall simply read, "Competence has no color, gender, or last name." Dr. Benjamin Hayes, now an official advisor to the Foundation, often remarked that he had never seen such a complete transformation of an institution. Amelia didn't just overcome prejudice, he said in speeches across the country. She proved that the best revenge is to build something greater than your oppressors could ever destroy. The most satisfying moment came when Amelia was invited to deliver the keynote address at the National Congress of Neurology, the same event where Peterson had once been treated like a celebrity. In the audience, doctors who had once ignored her now took frantic notes on every word, while journalists scrambled for exclusive interviews with a doctor who revolutionized British neurology. True strength, Amelia said during her lecture, does not come from destroying those who harm us, but from building bridges where others see only chasms. Every obstacle I have faced has taught me that our greatest revenge against prejudice is to become undeniably excellent at what we do. Alistair, watching from the front row, knew he had witnessed something rare, the complete transformation of injustice into purpose, of humiliation into greatness. Amelia had not only proven herself right, she had rewritten the rules of the entire game. Today, when young doctors face discrimination, they don't give up. They ask, "What would Dr. Jones do?" And the answer is always the same: work harder, study harder. Be so good that it's impossible to ignore you, because the best revenge isn't getting even with those who hurt you. It's achieving such resounding success that your enemies spend the rest of their lives wondering how they could have ever underestimated your true greatness. If this story of transformation and justice has touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories that prove that sometimes what seems like our greatest defeat is actually the first step toward our greatest victory. Because in the end, he who laughs last laughs best. Especially when that laughter echoes through the halls of hospitals that now save lives thanks to the courage of a woman who refused to let prejudice define her destiny.